you're going to need a lot of science for humans to live on Mars. You're going to need
Yeah.
a lot of science. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be the most difficult and complex thing we've ever done. And there's a good chance, there's a possibility that those people that go to Mars may not be able to come back to Earth.
Exploring life's journey, one story at a time. This is Trailheads with Jim Barrett.
Tim Russ is an actor, director, and musician, perhaps best known for playing Vulcan Lieutenant Tuvok on Star Trek Voyager. But that's not the first time we saw him on Trek. His first appearance came in the Next Generation episode Starship Mine, where he got in a tussle with Captain Picard. He then appeared on the bridge of the 1701B in Star Trek Generations. He also played a Klingon on Deep Space Nine before taking on the first Vulcan series regular on Star Trek Voyager. But there's a lot more to talk about today with Tim Russ. Tim Russ, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to Trailheads.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, I so appreciate it because I know you got a lot going on. So the brand for this show for me is getting out on the trails, getting out in nature, connecting with nature, something that I've done to sort of battle my own anxiety and depression. I know that over time that you've done a lot of physical activity out there, from basketball to running to hiking. Is that something that kind of resonates with you?
Yeah, right now, I mean, physically, if I'm not able to go to work out, which is usually racquetball at the gym, then I'll try to get a good walk in or a hike in. I have to do that. I mean, just to stay as healthy as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, antidepressants never really worked. So getting outdoors was always kind of like something magical. I started a hiking group back in SoCal in 2020. And of course, the pandemic came. So we sat on our heels for a short time, and then we went ahead and jumped out, started hiking
Good.
again as the governor allowed us to. So I was going to kind of go back to the very beginning. I know that you were raised as sort of a military brat and moved all over. And it kind of reminded me of my dad. My dad wasn't a military brat, but they had to move all over the place when he was growing up too, like 12 different places in 12 years. So was that difficult for you? He always talked about how difficult it was to make friends and hold on to friendships with all of that moving. Was that a challenge for you?
It was unpleasant for me having to lose the friends that I had. And if I wasn't going anywhere, then most of the time they were going somewhere. So it was twofold. In some cases, it wasn't, because in some cases I was in a city and I was the only one who was moving, and everybody else was living there. But in other places, I was on a base, and those Air Force kids were there with me, the military kids, and they would leave or I would leave, in the time that you were there. So you never were able to maintain those friendships for very long. They were very transient, and we didn't have Facebook and internet and social media and whatever, so we could not keep in touch with each other unless we wrote letters, and that just wasn't happening. I was able to fit in pretty well in mostly every place that I lived. Um, and in several of those places, music was the connecting factor. That was the glue, because every place that I moved after I was 16, I ended up playing in a band with other guys that were in high school with me. And boy, that sort of very much consolidated everything. Plus, I played sports as well. So fitting in was not a problem. And we most of us came from somewhere else. So
Yeah.
when I moved to places where there were bases, it was very easy, because everybody's just to go through the same thing.
So is that the place that sort of sparked your playing music?
Well, my brother started playing drums when he was 13 or 14. After he started playing drums, I wanted to play an instrument, so I picked up guitar around 15, 16, and have not put it down.
You're still playing all around town. I think I may have even seen you on a Star Trek cruise jamming as well, yeah?
Correct. I'm playing, once in a while we'll get outside of town and play a couple of gigs, but most of them are here in town. I post all of them on my website and Facebook as well, but mostly the website. So yeah, still playing, still gigging. I've recorded CDs and songs and things and as well, but I really enjoy playing live. That's where the passion is.
Is that also when you got the acting bug? Did I see that you had taken a class as a kid, early class?
Yeah, just high school. It was high school acting class, and then a couple of high school plays, musicals that were a tremendous amount of fun. They're very exciting. And then from there, I went to go study theater in college. And then after college, I moved to Los Angeles. And in coming to LA, I was primarily coming in as rather than going to New York, which would have been a pursuit of theater much more than film and television. I came to LA to pursue film and television and music at the same time. And, consequently, there's, you can make, at the time, especially for myself, I could make more of a living. Once I got into the loop of film and television, I could make enough money to live off of just doing that, as opposed to doing a theater, which might have been a lot more difficult, I think, if I'd gone to New York to try to pursue a live stage and try to make a living at that. I can't say for sure because we don't know what that track would have been, but I think coming to LA and pursuing film and television, which is a different type of work, certainly for acting. It's just from a financial standpoint, from a career standpoint, it was probably a better roll of the dice for me to come here and do that along that path.
For your first IMDb that shows up was an episode of Hunter. Is that accurate? Was that your first on-set gig?
Yeah, it might very well have been Hunter.
Then I call a lot of broken pipe.
Right. Hold on a second. It's what they call under fives. It was a day player role. And those are the kinds of roles you start out booking those, and then you work your way up to supporting and featured. And guest star. And that's for television primarily. I started out, the big break I had was a feature film for Paramount. That was the break. But the gigs I was booking, yes, just small bit roles. That's what those are. I got my SAG card actually before I left college. I was in Austin, Texas, and I booked a gig for PBS, and I got my SAG card there. And then, by the time I got to Los Angeles, I already had it. But yeah, it was in Austin, Texas. It was a couple of years before I got to LA that I got my card. Yeah.
What project was that?
It was Charlie Smith and the Fritter Tree. It was a Masterpiece Theater TV movie. I worked with Glenn Turman on that gig, and that was the first acting role that was significant for television for me at the time.
At what point did your infamous 4 words for Spaceballs come along? That was pretty early on, I guess.
It was early on. It was 1986.
Found anything yet? We ain't found shit.
I booked it in 86, and it came out a little bit later. But that was, mid 80s when that happened.
I've been acting for 35 years. 135 credits on IMDb. I was in a long-running series. You might remember it. Star Trek. But all I'm known for is combing the desert and saying, we ain't found shit.
Okay, I admit I'm kind of ashamed to say, although I had seen pieces of Spaceballs over the years, I'd never seen it start to finish. And my wife was looking at me like, what kind of a sci-fi fan are you? So I'm watching it and I'm like, that's Tim Russ from Voyager.
Like you weren't starring in the movie. It wasn't all about you, but
no, it was. It was.
You think you miss it.
Spaceballs is about that dude. Period.
I quote Spaceballs all the time.
I knew that was where you were going.
It's sorry to be so late to the game.
All right, man. It's it ain't going anywhere. That's for sure.
Talk a little bit about going back to astronomy. How did you first come upon astronomy? What sparked that interest?
Dude, I just woke up one day and decided that I wanted to go buy a telescope and look at the stars. Literally, it's out of the blue. Nobody talked to me about it. Nobody was doing it, and I saw them do it, and I decided to do it. I just decided one day I'm going to go out and I'm going to get my hands dirty, looking at the night sky. And I went out and bought a small telescope. Went out myself and looked at objects, tried to find some things, and it was absolutely remarkable. Looking at what I could see through a telescope eyepiece, and I was hooked.
What was the first sighting you saw through that telescope that jumped out at you and was like, wow, this is cool?
That was Saturn, the planet Saturn. The planet Saturn through the eyepiece. I was flabbergasted. I could see the detail that I did with such a small telescope at the time. When I first saw that, that was it. I was done. I had to get bigger and bigger, and more complex and more powerful, and all of them, and just keep going.
Right.
And I was always a fan of space science, so uh, astronomy was a natural step for me, hands-on astronomy, primarily visual. The newest telescope that I own, I can get that in a blink of an eye and without any hardware or complexity or anything like that. It's so painfully simple because it's new tech. So now I can combine the visual and the astrophotography at the same time.
You know, my kids were little. I took them to this church gathering that was at the top of Mount Pinos or Pinos, Mount Pinos in Fraser
Torpedoes, yeah,
Park.
yes, uh-huh.
There were a number of people up there, probably like you, who had their own telescopes because I didn't have any of that equipment. And some of them were very nice and had my kids come up and look through this viewfinder they had. And this was going back probably 15 years. But there was this cool little, I'm sure it's passe now, but at the time it was kind of cool. This little video assist that looked very Star Trek Voyager of you would zero in on a planet or a star and it would pop up with a little video display that would have the distance and all of the kind of telemetry there about the
Yeah, now you've got what I own is imaging telescopes, which are regular telescopes with eyepieces and all that, but they're small and they're portable. You can put them in a backpack, and within minutes I can bring in a galaxy from my backyard with detail. Yeah, in minutes. So, and you can see that through the eyepiece. That's what we have now. They're
that's amazing.
incredible, incredible. But we didn't have AI 5 years ago. Now we do, and so it's just another form of technology, and in every walk of our lives, that's what's going to happen, right? From
Right.
medical to entertainment to whatever it might be. That's
Right.
that's where we are, and we're not looking back. It's all going forward. So I'm
Absolutely.
grateful to have that available to me as a tool for astronomy as well.
Yeah, we just saw Project Hail Mary the other day, and I love Andy Weir's writing, how meticulously detailed he is. Um, I didn't read Artemis, but did you read it?
No, did not.
Well, I read and saw The Martian and of course Project Hail Mary. And both of those movies, I was just enthralled by the detail he has in his. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's detail that's based on science, which is really nice. The Martian was fascinating, and I can, as far as that subject goes, I mean, you can, you're going to need a lot of science for humans to live on Mars. You're going to need a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of
Right.
science. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be the most difficult and complex thing we've ever done. And there's a good chance, there's a possibility that those people that go to Mars may not be able to come back to Earth. That is a very good possibility. Not only because of the time it takes you to get there and back, but also because being on that planet, which has a reduced gravity, um, your exposure to radiation, things like that, it's a very dangerous environment for human beings to be in. Outside of this planet, man, it's just not a whole lot going on out there for human beings. So it's going to be very difficult for people to colonize uh, the moon and or Mars. Very, very, very difficult.
Jumping ahead to Voyager, how was that for you, already being an astronomer and having a passion for checking out space and science? Were you thinking about that when you put on the Tuvok uniform?
Not really. I didn't really. It was just a coincidence. I ended up on Voyager after having been an amateur astronomer. There wasn't anything that I viewed in Voyager that had anything to do with astronomy other than some vague sort of science concepts once in a while that they had to base for the stories, some of the dialogue, some of the situations and things. Yeah, just that. But I didn't really associate the two as being related to each other necessarily. Voyager was an acting gig, for me.
Yeah.
That's what it was, and it just happened to be science fiction, but it was an acting gig primarily, and to me, the astronomy was a whole separate thing.
I recently saw the interview that Will Wheaton did with you after your surprise return on Star Trek Picard, which was brilliant, by the way.
If you are willing to arrange a meeting, I can assist you in locating allies.
It was such a great. How was that for you as a human being, keeping that under your hat? For how long was that between the time you shot it and when it aired?
About 4 or 5 months, something like that. It was a while.
Yeah.
It once I already done it, it's not as difficult to not say anything about it. Not a problem.
Well, man, I just got to say it was brilliant. It must have been fun for you as an actor for the character that you played for 7 years to come back and put such an interesting twist on it as you did.
Yes, it actually was very cool because I didn't know, they didn't send me what I was supposed to be doing that far in advance. So it was a surprise when I saw it, and all I thought was, well, is he still alive, or is that going to be it? Is he gone? Is that his? He met his demise? So I was wondering about that because they didn't tell me, that I would be coming back for another episode.
Okay.
They just told me about
So
that.
you didn't shoot both of those on the same day? Those were two
No, no,
separate
those
shoots.
were done two separate times,
Okay.
and they're not going to give you anything that they don't have to give you.
Yeah.
They don't want that information out.
Need to
So,
know basis.
so yeah, so I didn't realize I was going to be back until after we'd already shot it. I had no idea.
Wow.
And then they said, "Yeah, they want you back for another episode." I said, "Okay, cool, fantastic." And then they didn't tell me what I was doing up until not long before shooting. A day or two, a week or so, and then realized what the part was, and that was good. It was great. It was a good button, a good tag for that character.
Yes. Well, as a huge Trekkie myself, being able to have that wonderful twist on Tuvok for the first part, and then at the end get the big teary scene in the finale. How fun is that?
That was perfect. And they sent it to me. I thought, well, that's fitting, and it's also touching. It was really, really a very lovely moment between the two of us. Especially after having worked with Jerry on Voyager for those other years, it was just wonderful to come back and be able to work with her and have a scene like that. You know,
Yes.
that was kind of cool. It's all about the writers.
Yeah. Well, and as Will Wheaton put it, you're a legacy character, and how amazing is that to be connected with such a huge entity franchise as Trek and be a legacy character? How does that feel? Is that
I,
weird?
I've got a lot of company on the bus, man. You know, there's a lot of us who are right there in the same pocket,
Yeah.
and was well aware of that before Voyager finished shooting. I mean, it's like you're part of the franchise and you are a key character in that franchise, so you're not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
as we speak, still going to public appearances, conventions, podcasts, and interviews, and whatever. The documentary. Just talked to the producer. They just recut the documentary again. I think it's coming out soon. Um, and I
I
think
just saw the teaser for that online.
yeah, they just got
I think
it's even tighter now. They got a tighter cut. David just told me that if they recut it last week or week before, they just recut it. So it's going to be very tight now, very tight.
well, as I jump around as I do in these interviews, I know people talk a lot about Tuvix, which was a truly remarkable episode. But I just recently saw Meld, which I thought was a fascinating episode. The one where Tuvok melded with the serial killer on board. What do you remember about that episode? Because that was a very different reality for Tuvok also.
Yeah, I like first of all, Brad Dourif is amazing. And a chance to work with
Yes.
him is just remarkable. I admire that man's work.
Yes.
He is unbelievably good. But I thought it was fascinating to explore for the character, my character, want to explore what the reason was that he committed this murder. Why did he commit this murder? I mean, this is, it's a contemporary thing, man. You could get contemporary crimes that are committed every day. And some of them, you just have to scratch your head and wonder what motivated somebody to make that decision
Yeah.
to commit these crimes or whatever they might be. So to me, it was fascinating to understand what drove this character to do what he did. And I like the fact that my character was curious about it, really wanted to explore, to understand what makes this man do what he did. And the legacy of the Vulcan characters, Vulcans, their legacy is absolute violence. I mean, a horrible, horrific violence
Sure.
from their past. So, it would be something that would, to me, it would be introspective. He would know not only his history, but, they have these volatile emotions that they control. And so is that something that this character is dealing with, or is it something else? And I think we don't know if it was nature or nurture for this man to do what he did. And so you want to explore that. We didn't actually come up with a reason in the episode, which I thought we should have, but they didn't want to reveal what the reason might have been.
Well, even the question of capital punishment in a crime like that, too, I thought was wonderfully explored.
Yeah.
I thought it was another episode that was a wonderful combination of your talents as an actor and the writers coming up with an interesting story that has you guessing every step of the way.
Yeah. 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 And questioning the norms, questioning the social constructs that we have, whether it's right to do this or whether it's wrong to do that. Yeah. And that's what Trek does. I mean, that's what it's always done.
So was your first appearance, was that in Generations or because Starship Mine, where you were the terrorist, that was probably the first one, wasn't it? I
Yeah.
think that was 90, and Generations was 94, I think.
Yes.
We're encountering severe gravimetric distortions from the energy ribbon, Captain.
So how was that for you? I know there's debate on whether you were a Trekkie or it was just one of many reruns that you watched over the years and became familiar with the show. But as a watcher of the show, as a fan of the show, how was that to actually be on set and be in the world of Star Trek for that first shoot?
Well, to me, man, this was a major step in my career. Being a series regular on a show that's going to stay on the air for a while is everything. As an actor, that's what you're shooting for film and television. I had been on a few series before that. They were short-lived. So I really wanted to get on a show that was going to stay on the air for a while. It just it happened to be the sci-fi show Trek. I was familiar with it because it was in syndication when I was growing up. It was on all the time. But to be part of the franchise that going in, I knew had a very good chance of staying on the air for a number of years. That's the key. There was no streaming back then. So everything was advertising based. And so that show could be booted in no time just because it didn't bring in enough advertising money. But we were the anchor show for the United Paramount Network at the time. So we had a pretty good chance of staying on. It was consistent. They knew they're going to go into syndication. So they're going to make their money over time. And they're still making it now. Plenty. So you're coming out way ahead. It's like it's an investment for them. As far as networks go, as far as television goes, if their show is going to stay on for more than a year or two, you're going to get your money back. And those shows are very expensive to shoot. Even today, they're expensive. They cost a lot of money to make. So, you're banking all that and you've got the franchise because they have a built-in audience, dedicated, built-in, loyal, enthusiastic, ever-present audience. So no matter what they shoot, where they shoot it, and when they shoot it, and how long they show it, you're going to have somebody watching it. And that's the main.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's the main thing. That's the main benefit for being on that project when I did. When it came around, I was just, counting my fortunes at that time because I had a good plan, a good knowledge that was going to be on for a number of years. We were planning for 7 years.
What's pretty remarkable too is a Trekkie and a Trekkie who's worked in the business also. It was quite amazing to be on the Paramount lot in the mid '90s when Next Gen had just completed 7 years. They were already doing a movie. DS9, I think, was into its second season by the time that you guys premiered.
Absolutely.
And I had a Voyager premiere party at my apartment. Had a lot of friends in television there, including one of the voices of CBS who was there watching you guys for its premiere. So it must have. I mean. I think you just described it. What an amazing thing it was for your career and for all of television, really.
Yeah, it was a major bump. It was a major deal. I was lucky to have the Paramount lot, which is not that far from where I lived. It's one of the closest studios to me, so I didn't have to drive to the other side of town or drive over the hill or whatever it was. It was just so easy to get there and back for work. So very grateful for that as well. Everything sort of fell into place for me at the time. I was very, very lucky, very fortunate to have the opportunity, very fortunate to have the break to do that show and to work on that show. I was at the right place at the right time. I was right for the role. The role was available. I had worked for them already, so everything just came into place. It just fell into place.
Well, and it also set you up a bit, as some of the other savvy actors in Trek have done, is springboarded that into directing. Because I believe that Living Witness was your first professional directing debut,
Yes,
was it
that is
not?
correct. That is correct. Yes. Yeah. Lucky to get that show. It was a good episode.
Phasers are online.
Target the first city. And fire.
The warship Voyager, one of the most powerful vessels of its time. This ship of destruction could wipe out an entire civilization within hours.
I went back as a Trekkie. My youngest kid is going to be 20 coming up. And about 10 years ago, as he was starting to get interested in Star Trek, we went through and watched all of the series. And it's a tie between, believe it or not, Next Gen and Voyager, seamless for him. Thought that they were both. He was really interested. And when he heard I was interviewing you, he was very excited.
Voyager was a platform for that show. The concept for that show was really, it gave you a lot of mileage because we're in uncharted space. Uncharted space goes back to the original series. The anchor for this whole thing, the concept of uncharted space, exploring uncharted space. That's what we did. There we are trying to get back home, but we're in uncharted space. So there's all of that means we can tell almost any story we want. That's the benefit of the concept of our show. And they deliberately set it up that way. So they didn't have to keep going back over and over and over the same alien characters, the same interactions, the same issues that they had come up all the time. Now you're breaking ground on things that you can explore all kinds of concepts and ideas, which we did.
I want to get this question exactly right because a friend of mine who's a big Trekkie also, and who actually played a bit part in an episode of Voyager, his name's Doug Spearman, and he wanted me to ask, did you feel a certain responsibility to represent when you got cast as the first Black Vulcan and also full Vulcan, not half Vulcan? He's a Black actor as well, and he said as a kid his first Halloween costume was Spock. So there's a lot going into it for him. He called me from set. What was the name of that episode? It was called Concerning Flight, but he was like an arms dealer. He said, "I'm calling you and I'm in all white." He was unrecognizable. You could tell from his eyes. He wanted me to ask you that. Did you feel a certain responsibility with that role?
Yeah, responsibility would have been number one to the producers so I don't get fired. I had to deliver that character to their liking. The fans already know that character, so, I've got to portray him accurately. From the first time the turbo lift doors open and he walks onto the bridge, you've got to know that this guy is Vulcan. And so my obligation was to portray him as that species accurately. Not being half human, half Vulcan, being 100% Vulcan, being more comfortable in his skin, having a wife and family. All those things make him different than Spock in that regard. So along the way, we could develop the character and give him the colors and the levels. But yes, I absolutely had an obligation to portray that character as believable as possible because, again, you've got fans watching that show, and they know every detail.
But jumping ahead a little bit, I followed some of the Star Trek, I guess you can call it fan films. Would you call them fan films of Gods and Men and Renegades and fan series? But I mean, fan films run by players from all across Star Trek. How was that for you as a director, having that playground with all of these amazing actors and doing it and you're running the show?
Well, it was nice because we had, at least for most of those projects, we had a decent enough budget to be able to shoot them properly and to do the post on them properly. Because again, those are very, very difficult shows to shoot. Those concepts are hard because science fiction is expensive. And you have to have a lot of sets, you got costumes, you got all these things that you need to make those things believable because they're period pieces. So they're very complicated to produce. They take longer in post to get done. There's just a myriad of things that have to be done right in order to make those things believable. I was just grateful to be able to have the resources to roll on those things and then to have them put together in post to come out the way that they did. It was wonderful to work with Alan Ruck, with Nichelle, with Walter, and all the other actors on the other two projects, which it's just to be able to work with those guys, but also to have the resources and production elements to make those things possible.
And were those on James' colleagues' Ticonderoga sets, the bulk of that?
Gods and Men was partly on that, yes. And then we shot some of it here in LA.
Nice to see all of that come together too, to see all of you guys joining forces. What an epic adventure all of that was. And I went back and watching you performing with Nichelle. Was that special for you, having those scenes with her?
Yeah, that was great because it's, nostalgia of it all. I mean, I watched her on the original series, so it was an honor to get a chance to work with her and to have her involved in that project. And she did a great job, as well with Walter as well. It was great. It was great.
Congratulations on that, because I know that takes beyond just the finances. It takes a lot of wits to get all of that done and to get all those people together and all of it, I would imagine.
It sure does, and that is not my job. Thankfully, I don't have that responsibility. All I have to do is show up and shoot it. It was loose. It was flowing. It was not super complex. It was hard because at that location, we didn't have a big crew available to us. So part of it was really hard. And Renegades was on a soundstage. From a production standpoint, it was a lot smoother and a lot more supported.
Springboarding off of that project, what directors do you admire, or were there directors that mentored you on your way up?
Well, it wouldn't be a question of hands-on mentoring. I didn't get any of that. I love William Friedkin's work, one of my favorites. As far as the writing, Patty Chayefsky, I love his writing, but William Friedkin's one of my favorite directors earlier on. And
The Exorcist, To Live and Die in L.A. are
oh
some
my God,
pretty
bunch
game changers right
bunch of
there.
stuff. Yeah, just really cool stuff. He was always brilliant. I didn't have any hands-on mentoring. I just had to, pick it up as I went along. Intern behind the scenes while I was on the show and do all the stuff you had to do in order to get your chops together. And just having the opportunity to study behind the scenes while working on the show made a huge difference.
The guys who, Glenn Reeves and his team at JPL, they had launched Pathfinder, but had not landed on Mars yet. And LeVar Burton was at JPL doing some kind of a documentary on his own, and he invited the team to come watch you guys film an episode of Voyager. So it was kind of like life imitates art, imitates life. And you guys apparently gave that Mars team a standing ovation, which was one of the coolest things he said that ever happened to him. So thank you for that.
Those are the real people, man. That's the real thing.
Lightning round for Tim Russ. What's your first memory?
Probably Alaska when I was just a little toddler, playing outside at the playground outside the apartments that I lived in.
Okay. In your astronomy life, what's the most memorable celestial event you've witnessed?
That would be the collision of the asteroid Shoemaker Levy 9 on the surface of Jupiter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's once in a lifetime.
How long did it take you to put on the ears?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Did that start longer and then it got shorter, or was it always about 20 minutes?
Might have started a little bit longer, then it got down to about 20 on average.
Name one particular music artist who inspired you to play music.
Would have been Terry Kath of Chicago, Carlos Santana. Those two.
Those are great. Outside of Voyager, what's your favorite Trek episode?
Outside of Voyager, my favorite Trek episode. Well, it probably would have been more of the features. I loved the Khan feature, and I loved the whale story. Those two are the most interesting to me as far as the major movies.
Who cracks you up?
Oh, well, that there's any number of people that crack me up. I can't give you one in particular. There's a bunch of different comedians and comics. Some people are just brand new and on the scene. What I do like is I tend to like British humor and sketch comedy. I do like that a lot.
If you could travel through time and see one music act live in one day, who would that be and when?
Well, that would... back in the day, I probably would have taken... See, the problem is it may be more than one. I can't just say one. There would be several that I would want to see live. Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs, and Englishmen. A little help from my friends. I would love to have been in that moment in time and seen that live. The Who, I would have enjoyed seeing them live. That would have been a kick. There's a few more, but there's so many musicians that I grew up with and would love to have seen live. I can't pick just one.
What's the best bit of short directing that you've received from a director? Just like a short note, somebody who said faster, slower, louder, softer, whatever. Something like that.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's the shortest note that I would get as an actor. Typically, is going to be pace it up, or take your time on that. Take a longer beat, take time. That's usually what a lot of times what those notes end up being. If it's not something that's really complex in terms of a monologue, a certain, big long speech or something that's happening and it's very important, typically it might be a matter of pacing. They may want to slow it down or they want to speed it up. It's either one of the two.
Who in all of history would you like to have lunch with?
Oh, that's interesting. I think Martin Luther King, Shirley Chisholm would be a kick, actually. I don't know. There's a few. There's so many people, and going back as far as I could think, because I love history to begin with, would be fascinating. There's others. I'd go as far back as ancient Egypt if I had to. Just to sit down and have lunch with him. Can you imagine Ramses? Having that whole thing to see what's going on and building his temples and things.
Those are great. All right. So tell us about some of the things you've got coming up, Tim. I know that you go to the convention circuit. You got some live music. Tell us some of those events that'll be coming up in the coming weeks and months.
The website is Tim Russ webpage. If you just type my name in on Google, it's going to come up. You'll find the website, and all my gigs are listed on there. So all of them are listed on my website. Places I'm going to be appearing as a guest actor at a convention, those are all listed on my website. Tim Russ Crew is the name of the band. And I have my own Facebook page, Tim Russ Crew. I list all my gigs right there as well. So everything is on the website or on Facebook.
I'll put all of that up full screen or lower third in this section.
Yeah,
so
the main thing is the website. That has the info.
Well, Tim Russ, thank you so much for taking the time. It's a pleasure meeting with you and talking about all of this stuff. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No problem, brother.